Hello, Alex here. Quick note in advance of the start of the podcast. We did experience some minor technical difficulties related to audio quality on the main recording. We are doing some changes to our setup because we're trying to get out of using a very expensive annual subscription to Zoom for doing our podcast recording. And they're still having a few growing pains. So, pardon our dust. And since I'm going to be using the backup recording for this. Next month we should be good to go. Hello, and welcome to the Anime Explorations podcast. My name is Alex.
I'm Tora.
I'm David.
And we are a monthly anime book club podcast where we watch an anime series or anime adjacent thing, as in the case with this month, and talk about it. But before we get into the meat of it, we usually talk about what we're currently watching, news and updates and that sort of thing in what's going on with anime. And, well, it's the start of a new anime season, so now's a good time as any to talk about what we're watching. David and Tori, what's up?
We're watching Sakamoto Days, adaptation of weekly manga series, action comedy, I would describe it.
Continuing to watch Shangri-La Frontier.
Yes. One of my favorite new shows I've discovered this year is, is From Bureaucrat to Villainess. Dad got reincarnated.
It's an isekai with dad energy.
It's an isekai where a 52-year-old former otaku nerd, now government official, has died and got reincarnated into an otome game as the villainess. And it's just so full of dad energy that, basically people are noticing this character has had a complete turnaround in personality, and it's just so wholesome and nice and full. It's a very relaxing show, and I like it.
He knows a little about the game world he's trapped in because his daughter played it, but not enough to really know what's going on. So
yeah.
What about that farming one?
Oh, that's a couple years old.
Oh, it's an older one.
It's an older one. It's just
I watched all of Solo Leveling with David.
Oh yeah. We're also watching the new season of that.
That is just the most power fantasy of power fantasies, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah. I kind of fell off a little bit of this season of Solo Leveling once we got to the, well, I'll be your brother part in the early part of this season, where I'm like, okay.
Sure, why not?
This is getting a bit much. But other than that, currently watching among the various shows, what I really want to shout out that you haven't mentioned, Zenshu is one of the shows I'm watching this season. It is an isekai series. It is an isekai series about a animator, woman animator, who dies after eating poisoned clams on her in a spoiled convenience store bento, and ends up in a basically grimdark anime movie from the 80s that was her inspiration to becoming an animator. And her power is basically rewrite and reanimate portions of the plot. Because she had
awesome.
with
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's on our list. We haven't gotten to it yet. It's another one by Mappa.
Got it.
Yep.
We just had. Go ahead.
They got Ichiro Itano to come out of retirement to do an Itano circus for the second episode of the show.
Animation reference, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
This will come up when we get to the news stories, but yeah, it's really good and unsurprisingly very well animated.
Sounds delightful.
That's that's the big show I'm watching this season. Again, that you haven't mentioned. Like I'm watching Sakamoto Days, Sadamoto Days. I'm watching, um, what else? I am watching second season of Apothecary Diaries,
Oh
and
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You would
um
forget something.
I'm watching the new Aquarian series, which is interesting because I haven't watched Aquarian since the first any of the some fan subs of the first Aquarian series as it was coming out. Um, and it's very different, but than it was back in the day. Also, just for the slightly different take on the medical professional mystery series, I'm also watching Ameko MD Doctor Detective, which is literally Anime House, except with
Ah,
like complete with a it's not lupus bit at the first episode.
amazing. It's never lupus, except for that time when it is.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I'm watching. As far as the
That's the
news,
new stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say that's the new stuff we're watching. I am watching one old anime with our son that is now available on Disney Plus through Hulu, and
indeed,
that
because
and that is Macross 7.
yes, we get the news. We finally have the Macross series after the original. And Do You Remember Love in the United States? Canada got them like a month or so ago. But now we have them in the United States on Disney Plus and Hulu. Macross 7, Dynamite, the spin-off series, sequels OVA, Dynamite 7. We got Plus. We got, I think we got Zero. We got,
Frontier and Delta as
yeah,
well.
we got
So
it.
it's all there.
Yeah, it's what we've been waiting years for. We're just missing two chunks. We're missing original series, and we're missing Do You Remember Love? And
Oh, no,
No, Do You Remember Love is up there, and so is Macross 2.
Do you remember Love, or do you mean Flashback 2012?
It said I haven't watched it yet, but it said Do You Remember Love? You can
All right, I am just going to pull this up on my phone rather than using doing this on the computer. We are checking live, ladies and gentlemen. Well, live to tape.
I guess maybe not. Listen to my song.
No, yeah, you were right. Flashback 2012.
Yep.
I got confused by Lovers again.
Yep. So I did some check. So there was some conversation. This in a couple of boards I'm on, and so the looks of things, the rights issue for Do You Remember Love might be more complicated than just the whole Tatsunoko Harmony Gold situation. So for those of you who've been following me in podcasting from Bureau 42, you may know that David and I did a podcast on Do You Remember Love, and I mentioned that it had gotten previously a limited VHS release in the United States, first as a film called Clash of the Bionoids, and then briefly as itself before fading out of print. So that company who released it went out of business because they had a bunch of children's films. They got bought up by a bunch of other companies, and it looks like they got bought by Chicken Soup for the Chicken Soup for the Soul company, who owned previously Redbox, and who is also going out of business. So it sounds like Do You Remember Love has a special extra spicy layer of rights nonsense on top of it, behind the stuff that Robotech Robotech and Macross fans are used to having to deal with.
Oh man. The funniest thing about the funniest thing about the in-universe Do You Remember Love issue, because it's presented as a theatrical movie version of the events of the original Macross show. However, in Macross 7, they use the Do You Remember Love design for Exodor, or Exodol, depending, and which implies that in fact it's not the movie version, it's what actually happened, and the original Macross series is the adaptation in universe, which is so silly. Because they reused one character's very distinct design.
That, or
For those not familiar,
he played himself in the movie, in the in-universe movie.
for those not familiar with Macross or Robotech, it hasn't been available for a long time. Now it is. Some of us are very excited about that. You guys, if no one has watched any of it, where should they start with the stuff that's actually available?
Like I want to recommend Robotech, which is the original, which includes the original adaptation. However, because of subtle changes and the fact that the rest of the universe is now available, I would probably recommend starting with Macross 7. Because it's so good, it is so very what Macross has become. And also, it's a rock and roll band fighting space vampires with the power of rock.
Can't say fairer than that.
Also, it has Gamlin, who's my favorite.
Macross is like if a giant show was just as much about the power of music as it was giant robots. Friend, like,
and also each sorry.
I like, to be fair for that description, that's something that that the creator has revisited in other series as well. Because I believe he also worked on Symphogear, which is basically Mecha Musume Mecha Girl pop idols. And then did again with AKB 0048, which is literally AKB 48 fights space fascists in powered armor while singing pop songs.
I also totally recommend it if you're into sociology, because it has fascinating things to say about culture as an outreach to other cultures, culture as an instrument of war in some cases, and culture as an instrument of peace.
Absolutely.
Mostly pop culture.
Well, also, what's really interesting is that each of the Macross shows use their own form of music.
Mm-hmm.
Like Macross 7 is very rock. It feels rock, especially late 80s, early 90s rock. As opposed to like Macross Frontier, which is about pop music, and the most recent Macross Delta, which is very much that K-pop style band music. And I have a lot. I didn't really like Delta that much, but it did have the bit where all of the giant robot musician pilots are actively practicing, essentially team dancing K-pop style.
If you got caught up in and or are interested in the Hallyu wave and its effects on America, then it is a good adjunct to that.
It's also interesting in terms of from a standpoint of, because the music that they're doing is in the various series that plays at the forefront often is also the genre of pop music or rock music that is at the forefront in usually in Japan at the time. So you're also seeing the evolution of it. This is what's popular in like how music tastes ebb and flow in Japan in terms of, and through this as well. This actually weirdly ties into in an interesting way with our next news story, which is the Discotheque Media announcements that came out this week. They as of this recording, they did their usual like quarterly thing where they announce a whole bunch of new stuff. I'm not going to go to the big stuff right away because the segue is actually one of the American American kids animated films that they did. I don't know if y'all remember Stone Protectors. That was the Trolls cartoon series.
Oh my god, yes! Stone Protectors! We're the Stone Protectors.
And you remember, and they're a rock band because the show came out in the late 80s, early 90s, which is peak, like, hair rock being the big thing.
Oh, I've seen pictures of this. Yeah.
And so that popped in my mind there, because you're through how music and music groups are used in American television, animated series, kind of showed like, hey, what is considered the mainstream? Like at this point, you also have like for example, hip hop breaking through, but you're not seeing the same like level of rap depiction in children's animated series of that time. It occasionally would show up. It was super cringe when it did, but it did occasionally
Yeah.
show up, but not very often.
Honestly, we could do an entire episode on just music in animation.
Sure.
Like music in universe in animation, and there's tons of it, both sides of the Pacific.
Yeah. Other things that were licensed from this, I have the list up here. Stuff of note. We have two more. I would consider semi-notable, or a few more semi-notable Western animated series. The American animated Darkstalkers and Street Fighter cartoons.
Oh boy.
King Arthur and the Knights of Justice.
Yes. I don't know how many other people remember that, but it was so weird.
And Highlander.
Okay, the Highlander animated show was a really interesting idea, ruined by the fact that it had to follow the rules for broadcast for American children.
Yep. Like
Does it have anything to do with the planet Zeist?
No, not exactly. It is Highlander.
That's good.
But because it's like Highlander, there can be only one. Immortals battling and decapitating each other. But because it's an American kids show in the 90s, you could not actually show them cutting off people's heads. Or even implying it.
Yeah.
So are we talking like early 4Kids dubs levels of censorship, or is it more
Before.
like gargoyles?
The X-Men,
Gargoyles got away with a lot of things.
think original X-Men 97, when Wolverine could only use his claws on sentinels and walls.
Got it.
Yeah, swords are only for use against robots.
Got it.
Yeah, so like this is a thing where like I think in our current era of She-Ra, Princess of Power, of She-Ra on Netflix, and of Voltron Legendary Defender, and for that matter, the Avatar series and Legend of Korra, I think you could probably do a animated Highlander series, which could probably do about the level of violence of Highlander, the television series with Adrian Paul, and get away with it. Because that series got away with, people's heads got chopped off. We didn't actually see the head leave the shoulders, except for like the VHS TV movie, VHS direct to video store movie version. And even then, not
important part of the lore.
It is.
Yeah. And
the thing about
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And so you could do that, and then have your animated flashy quickening explosions and such. Although admittedly, part of the appeal of the Highlander television series, aside from decent acting and sword fighting, is that you got your explosion of the episode whenever an immortal got killed.
Yeah, I will say the Highlander TV show, like the actor who was playing Duncan MacLeod, Adrian Paul, actually is a very talented swordsman.
Which is neither here nor there.
It's not, but like it does have some very good choreography on a budget. I mean, you can very tell, this was a guy talking to the guest star being like, okay, we're going to do this. It's like, okay.
Cool factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at Highlander and thought, you know what? Kids show.
It wasn't, who looked at Highlander and thought kids show. It was producer says, hey, this makes money. We made money by making this other property of kids. There's a RoboCop kids show.
I beg your finest terrestrial pardon?
There is a RoboCop kids show from the 90s.
There is a Conan kids show from the 90s. There is a Rambo kids show from the 90s.
Okay.
This was producers and executives being like, this made money with adults. We want to make money from adults buying toys of this for their kid, so we're going to kid-friendlyize it.
Yep.
We have Ronald Reagan to thank for all of this, obviously.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. I mean, some of those shows that came out of this were all right, but some of them weren't. Speaking of other shows that got toy eyes,
I watched all these shows
and that sort of thing, or are not for kids, I would say, that were licensed, that we came up in the discotheque media thing, getting into the meat of this. Like I'd be glad to go for the music transition because they did both of the Nana movies, live action films. But we've also got Higurashi no Koro ni, the original Higurashi series. Sentai had the Filmworks had the license after Funimation before it. And now Discotheque's got it, and they are doing a full re-subtitling of the series because apparently there were some significant issues with the original subtitles where it's like they translated something one way, and it turns out it was very important in later in the series that be translated this other way, but they weren't able to go back and change it, and they just stuck with that subtitles over the past few releases.
Discotheque, my heroes.
That's 4 kids level of we removed Laboon because we didn't think it was important. Why?
Yeah. We have Nanoha Vivid Strike, the sequel to Nanoha Vivid. Nanoha Vivid has not been licensed because that's an Aniplex show. So that's dependent on Sony Funimation Crunchyroll. We have the live-action Lupin the Third movie, along with the Kamen Rider X and the 2014 live-action Kikaider film. Also, Special Investigation Robo Jan Person for more of your tokusatsu fun. We have So Discotheque Media had previously released Space Adventure Cobra. I have the 4K release they did of it. They now have the alternative cut from the UK, which has a original soundtrack by the Swiss electropop band Yellow. Who is probably best known in the US for their single hit, Oh Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that, yeah.
Oh, you absolutely remember it, because the song that has the oh yeah and the percussion and that sort of thing.
Oh, the soundbite song. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You know it.
Yeah, they have done a ton of other stuff. I've actually listened to some of it. It's actually surprisingly good. I am interested to see what their soundtrack version of the movie sounds like. Let's see what else. We have Flame of Recca. It's gotten a SD Blu-ray release. We have the original Osumatsu-kun. We have as the semi completionist for City Hunter, they have Angel Heart, which I watched some of fan subbed back in the day. This is the spin-off alternative universe sequel to City Hunter. Yes, Cyborg 009 versus Devilman. And then as their
Gonagai, give it up.
Gonagai and Shotaro Ishinomori crossing over.
I know. It's just Gonagai needs to recognize that Devilman is just fine, but it's never going to be as popular as his other stuff, and he needs to stop trying to press the issue.
Yeah,
Hey, let the man chase his joy.
And to be fair,
He's not losing his joy, he's shoving his joy in my face.
and
And I'm not.
to be fair, that
No one's
OVA has been
making
out for a while, and I think in Japan it was been as popular as a bunch of his other stuff because arguably Devilman spurred on the whole dark hero concept.
Don't get me wrong, Devilman is. It's okay. It's not Mazinger Z, though.
Fair.
If you try and go for influential, it's never going to be that good. And it amuses me how much that angers him.
I mean, I read the whole Devilman manga.
So
I enjoyed it. All right, speaking
I
of,
didn't. It was a little depressing for me.
speaking of dark stuff, they're just wrapping things up for their just one more thing. They licensed rescued Urotsuki Doji.
Really?
Yes, the OVA and the film. They managed to hunt down basically the cleanest possible prints they could of the 35mm film, and then gave it the full Criterion Collection remaster treatment. My words, not theirs. But like they spent 9 months going frame by frame through the movie, like not removing film grain, but like scratches and all the kind of stuff that comes from improper storage of film.
From the real being old, yeah.
Yeah, and cleaning it up for this release. So like I'm like was it Urotsuki Doji? Not my thing, but it's historically significant in multiple respects, and I appreciate them. I appreciate the effort that is being put into this.
Mm-hmm.
Important restoration stuff going on.
Yeah. I
Like-
don't know if I'll pick up a copy, but Ace is on them for doing it.
Yep. Like if we were to cover anything remotely hentai related on this show, I'd be doing Belladonna of Sadness before this, because Belladonna of Sadness has the interesting situation of it's a Osamu Tezuka production. It's the last thing Mushi Productions was going out of business as the movie was being made. It got picked up by the Criterion Collection for the Criterion Channel. It has that going for it. Before Urotsuki Doji, it is a art film in a lot of respects. But like again, and like Urotsuki Doji was distributed on the art film side. There was a virtual panel that was done during one of the anime lockdown events. On history of hentai, and they mentioned that Urotsuki Doji was like screening in the same theaters that were showing an earlier in the day screenings Babette's Feast at they were like coming out contemporaneous to each other.
I know it went through. It was distributed through the art film style because that's how I accidentally watched it. Very, at the time from a Blockbuster rental because it was just on their shelf and I was watching everything, all the anime they had, and I'm betting whoever bought it did not watch it beforehand when they put it up.
My Blockbuster horror story was picking up Mermaid Scar when I was way too.
Oh my god, Mermaid Scar!
I'm still scarred. Let's just put it that way.
Going back, it's like, oh, there's an entire myth around this, not just a traumatizing anime.
I'm kind of curious to rewatch it to see if it matches up with my young, impressionable memories. It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's the Discotheque media announcements. Of those, the one I'm probably going to pick up the most. Again, Angel Heart, watched a bunch that fan subbed. The right thing to do is to pick it up and be legit on my end. And
I don't think it's be legit. I think a better way of saying is support the official release so we can get more.
Yeah. So I will support. I'm supporting the official release. Possibly pick up Vivid Strike because same sort of thing. Like I've enjoyed the Nanoha franchise. As far as that particular take on the way they handle magical girl combat and that sort of thing. in that franchise. It's that series still has like franchise has some problems. On the other hand, like it's also like has textually queer characters. Like by season 3, Nanoha and Fate are grown up, living together, have adopted a couple of kids, and yeah, so
They're just the bestest of friends.
History will remember this roommate.
so like, hey, that's something. I mean, we get a bit of that with Sailor Moon and we will eventually cover Sailor Moon on the show at some point, but not something that you necessarily get as much in, say, Pretty Cure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And
Shall we move on to the main event?
No,
Indeed.
there is one more anime adjacent announcement. At
Oh?
least one more. Yes. The official announcement by Bandai for Gundam Assemble, a tabletop Gundam war game.
Yes.
They have not released any rules. Given the scale and the fact that it's set on a hex grid, I'm currently expecting it to be a lot. And the fact that they've established they're going to be small squads, I'm expecting it to be something a lot like Battletech. And given the fact that I know I'm not the only one who has used small Gundam models for Battletech, this will be fun. I hope. I fully expect I'll probably pick up a starter set and then use the rules for all of my actual, like, 144 high-grade scale models and have them do it that way.
that does sound awesome. And as a fan of the Super Robot Wars series, I approve.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to that. It's relatively small scale. I think there are like 3 starter sets that they've announced, each with 3 models, and I'm looking forward to it.
And considering that, like Bandai also does model kits for lots of other mecha as well. When I brought up Super Robot Wars, like they do Evangelion model kits. They've done Mazinger model kits. I think some of their Soul of Chogokin figures are about the same scale as some of the Gundam kits, even though they're not models. So when I say I'm looking, as a fan of Super Robot Wars, I'm looking forward to this, I mean somebody is going to hack these rules, say, hey, how can I do this as a Super Robot Wars game, miniatures game? Especially considering also Bandai owns Super Robot Wars.
Yeah, I mean, Bandai releases models for everything. I mean, they've got like they've got an entire series of One Piece ships and Dragon Ball characters. So, you know, depending on how loose they make these rules, this could be ridiculous amounts of fun on the tabletop.
So that is something that I am very interested in. Particularly since, like, also on the mecha role playing side of things, we don't have a lot of stuff really. That
the only one I'm really familiar with is Lancer.
Like we have a Lancer, we had Mechton, with we have Chris Perrin's mecha, which I haven't really gone through enough yet. And then there's various stuff that tries to bolt mecha onto other systems. Like there's a set of loose mecha rules for Stars Without Number. There's some mecha add-on rules that were published for GURPS 3rd edition, which use the vehicles.
Palladium has Robotech rules.
Which is just a rules. Version of there's system. Savage Worlds Robotech rules as well. But yeah, and so I'm interested to see. Okay, like having additional options for this sort of stuff is always good. And so now is probably as good a time as any for the moment to get into our main event, which is Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 3 and the film Thunderbolt Fantasy Bewitching Melody of the West, which is the origin story for one of our main characters, who we was introduced to in season 2, Lang Wu Yao, and his musical instrument Ling Ya. So so I've seen these shows before. Um, what were your thoughts going into these shows?
Well, we're rewatching this again. We what 2 years ago when we did the first Thunderbolt Fantasy series, we loved it so much we just basically binged the rest of the show that's available, or that was available at the time. So this is rewatching. It's good. It's solid. Season 3 is obviously less of a standalone season than 1 was. It's very much continuing on from 2. But I don't think that's a bad thing. It does feel like we're expanding the world. We're seeing more of it, more of the the characters behind where we first saw our protagonists. And
it also gives us a lot more of ZU as well, because like particularly with like the entirety of Bewitching Melody of the West is in ZU, because we're getting the backstory of Ling Wu Yao, and learning where he came from, how he got his instrument. And I definitely say also is like the first movie between seasons 1 and 2, you probably could have skipped it. There's like some useful little bit of plot stuff there that comes up, but nothing essential. I think the second film is absolutely kind of essential viewing between seasons 2 and 3, because otherwise you're like, when stuff from CU starts to show up, it is operating with the assumption that you've gotten that character development from the second film. Particularly I'm thinking here in terms of when, like, once they show up, get teleported using the we're jumping ahead a bit, with the leaf portals into Zayu and end up in the palace, and you see the poster on the wall, and like, oh, this is bad.
Yes, I like how the Bard character became very important.
why are you here? Because he's just a talented voice actor and musician who's providing us. Oh God, you're plot important all of a sudden.
So plot important.
Oh no, you were just the buddy before. Now you. Oh.
I like how the show has really leaned into sci-fi elements this season. There's some alternate dimension talk. There's portals. All kinds of fun things. And there's a robo arm.
Oh yeah,
robo arm and time travel. Yeah.
One of the characters is the season in space.
That's true.
Or two of the characters, I suppose, depending on how you count it.
Yeah. So quick to go over the plot real quick of also season 3, because we talked a bit about the second film. Season 3 is almost literally picks up right from the conclusion of season 2, with our main characters going to search for they hope dead body of the from season 2 of Lo Luzenji, and ugly importantly 7 blasphemous deaths, which we last saw plummeting into a ravine. And again, their hope is, okay,
our protagonists are savvy and they know.
Yeah,
that's a Disney villain death and it doesn't count.
Yeah. The parents like, okay, all the pulp. We said he could, no one could survive that. Therefore, there's a non-zero chance he survived that. And even if he did,
we're not lucky enough that'll kill him.
Yeah. And even if it did actually kill him, we really don't want to leave 7 blasphemous deaths lying around. So we need to get that back. We need to deal with that right away.
The mind control sword.
Yeah. So, and they end up in a basically a magical series of labyrinth of caverns, where it turns out that the antagonist the Order of the Divine Swarm that the Ji Ling-yo from last season was working for. They've set up in there along with one of the antagonists from season 1.
My favorite character,
Xing Hai.
the demon necromancer.
And they've teamed up, which is also not good. And so now that to contend
the villains have
with that.
Honestly, the entirety of this season could just be Shangbu Huan's no good, very bad week.
Villains assemble, but also heroes assemble.
And
yeah.
this is also, I would say, probably the season where the enigmatic Gale actually kind of gets what he wants, so to speak.
Gale.
Oh my god.
We get peak Gale this season.
Gale finally gets to really just indulge his desires to be an evil bastard, hurting other evil bastards.
Everyone's like, Gale, why are you like this? And he's like, yeah, but by now you know that I'm like this, so...
Why are you surprised when I betrayed you? You straight up told people I was going to betray you. And now you're acting shocked I did it?
I think he straight up says to somebody, like, nobody trusts me anyway. Like, I make a point of being very untrustworthy.
This also has some of my favorite visual gags of the whole show, particularly taking advantage of the fact that this is not just a series with co-production between Peely and Nitro Plus, which is the company that Gennaro Bucci, his studio. This is Nitro Plus, Peely, and Good Smile Company, which means we have communication Nendoroids.
They're so cute.
Oh my god. I remember watching this. I'm like, that looks like a Nendoroid.
It is.
You know, that is actually just a Nendoroid. That's not even like, oh, we're making something cute. No, they just used an actual toy
They make an amazing in-universe use of the actual product.
Except considering the size of the puppets, they're actually making slightly smaller Nendoroids using the design to be held in the puppet.
Really?
Because I mean, if you think about it, it's not like the Nendoroids are being held by human-sized hand. Because I have a couple Nendoroids on the shelf over there. They're small.
The puppets are like 2 foot tall, right?
3
foot tall.
The Nendoroids are like about
And the
6
inches.
Nendoroids are small.
Oh yeah, the puppets like 2 to 3 feet tall, and so you have to have them photographed right. Even if you have a slightly larger hand for a close-up shot, it's still going to be need to be smaller than the actual Nendoroids normally are. So like that was like doubly funny. And then also like,
nice.
and also they dunk on the Nendoroids too, which is also funny because it's like.
Shang is so horrified when he gets Gale's out. He's like, "What is this cursed object?" And Gale's like, "I ain't even gonna tell you how I made it because you would like it."
What?
He's like, "I don't want it near me," and Gale's like, "Well, too bad. This is how we're gonna communicate." I'm putting you back in the bag.
Oh wait, don't. Oh.
And then Shangbu Han gets one later.
Yeah. Oh man, we don't get enough time with the Shang one. That's my only critique.
Because it's just there for a reveal of, oh, you bastard, Gale!
Yes, it was beautiful. There's some great moments toward the end of the season. You're like, wait, what just happened? Wait, what just happened?
Oh my god! That evil bastard! How did?
It's so good.
Yeah. I love the bit where when Shangbu Han shows up to our antagonists, and in particular when Jing Hai is there And she shows up, and she basically says, "Look, this guy gets his rocks off, like ruining the day of villains like us."
Yep. And Gale's just like, yeah, but right now I'm on your side. And the other villains are like, yeah, girl, he's on our side. And she's like,
even that, it's like, have you done anything you feel bad about? He's like, no, I switched my loyalty. I don't think I actually betrayed anyone. I'm still doing everything I can for my country. And Gale's like, yeah, I got nothing against that. And he doesn't. That's like the thing at the end. It's like,
it's boring. I do think that character, the general, also known as the Centipede,
Wanyu
Po,
yeah,
he has, I think, the most complete arc over the course of the season. There are areas, like especially like in the first third to half of the season, it feels a bit like the heroes are in a holding pattern, and so are some of the villains. Yeah, but this guy, he goes through this complete arc over the course of the show, and it was very fun to watch. And I mean, it wasn't anything like revolutionary or groundbreaking, but it was well executed, you know? And the emotion was there. Okay. I have a minor quibble with the season, which is that I got a little sick of the Void Junction set.
Yeah.
I feel like they were there so often that I missed the more varied sets from the first and second seasons. It was a well done set. It was after a while, it was every scene.
Speaking of other characters and interesting antagonists, we have showing up in both the film and the series. We have Xiao Feng, played by the current number one contender, not Queen of the Tsunderes, but number one contender for Queen of the Tsunderes, Rie Kukumina, who also here is playing instead playing a yandere. We get a bunch of her in the movie and then a bit of her in the series. What do you think about her as a character?
I feel like she's a bit one note and predictable, because like when you compare her to Xinghai, who is also a very kind of predictable villainy for villainy sake villain, I feel like Xinghai is more interesting and goes through more ups and downs in her story and personality. Whereas so far this princess is just kind of one situation, one track.
I disagree, actually. For me, Xiao Feng really reminds me more of that sort of Azula style archetype from Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's like, this is a princess who is under so much pressure, she's just straight up snapped.
Well, you could argue about how responsible she is for her actions given the curse on the palace, but I think that's kind of, it's neither here nor there when you're analyzing her character.
I know, but that was the thing. It's like, she doesn't understand how to properly interact with other people. Like, literally, based on what we've seen with her, like, tiny interactions with her dad, the Emperor, who is cloistered away.
She's a daddy's girl, for sure.
Well,
it's such...
semi-cloistered away, because we have the twist at the end where he's also running the villain organization.
Away. Yeah.
Yes. Like, yeah, he's playing both sides because it amuses him. It's like, okay, this is boring, but if I create an entire organization, he's pulling a Palpatine.
I also feel like she and the Emperor / main villain, they were definitely kind of being set up as antagonists for next season. And so in some ways, her intrusion into this season felt a little forced. Like in the movie, it makes sense. But then when you get into the season proper, she pops up a few times. And I mean, the first few times I was fine with it. It made sense. But then, except for that reveal right at the end when we see the Emperor, it's kind of like, ugh, what are you still doing here? You don't have anything to do with the action that's currently going on.
Okay, I will admit, in this season, she's less of a character, or it's better to view her less as a character than more of as a part of the setting. Like, she is this insane. She's the reason,
I like her better if I think of her as an obstacle in general Poe's story.
Yeah. she's Wan Yu's essentially reason for turning,
Yeah.
She's yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Like she does feel more like she is a influencing force on the story once you get into the move from the movie into the season of the show, but not a as an active participant in the same way. I would also minor thing is I actually feels less of a curse on the palace and more a curse on the royal bloodline, because
that would make more sense, I guess, because they said they cleansed the palace.
Like, the thing is, like, is this actually a curse, or is this just rich, powerful people who can control others being like that?
So they get into this when we get into the, because this season we'll get the full backstory of 7 blasphemous deaths, and we find out that she was at one time, well, she wasn't always a sword. She was once a demon. And she, after the War of Fading Dusk, which we get a bit more information on that too, she stuck around, went into the court of the Xinghai, and seduced the emperor. And I think it's a really strong implication that, like, basically the bloodline from there comes from her. And so it's
they're all part demon, really.
Yeah, so it's part demon, but part demon with wealth and privilege and no checks on their behavior, which makes for an interesting contrast when we also learn the backstory and who the father of scrolling over to get
but like
yeah.
Lang Wu Yao also his dad was Demon Lord as a Belfer.
Spoilers. Too late.
We're so far into spoilers at this rate. His mom was also a noble. He also, he's got obviously not equivalent to the royal family privileged upbringing, but like a parent who cared.
Yes, but we also know specifically that 7 Blasphemous Deaths is a master of heretical sorcery, and we know that she can do magic involving blood because she cursed her own blood so heavily that whenever you kill her physical form, she just possesses whatever object killed her. So it's not outside the realm of logic to think that she cursed the bloodline somehow.
And also
that's like her thing.
And also for
that's fair.
And also for what it's worth, like, while if you keep going back to look at the name, while Lang Wu Yao his family was from his mother was from aristocracy, he wasn't raised in aristocracy. He was raised out in the mountains until
that's true.
Until his voice cracked
and when you get impregnated by a demon, people don't like you.
Yeah, and raised in the mountains until his voice cracked and his mom tragically died. Which that's probably, like, as far as the writing goes, probably one of the rougher parts, I think, of the story in terms of not great writing of a female character. Because, like, we need you to have a tragic dead parent. And it's going to be the mom, and it's going to be after she's already had a bunch of nasty stuff happen to her, we're then going to have her stumble off a cliff and die because your voice cracked and you didn't sound right anymore.
Gosh darn it, we will give you tragedies to sing of.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Sing me, my angel of music.
His life is tragic. Anyway.
So Shang.
The demon lord shows up to mess with his offspring, and I feel like that is a very fun sequence. And so our bard has to make a choice. Is he going to mess with time or not? Which I feel like they kind of glossed over this a little bit. Like they do talk about what the consequences of him making this choice would be, but I don't feel like it was ever presented as a big threat, like he would actually do it, if that makes sense. I think we all knew that he was going to choose the right thing and not mess with the timeline.
It's like, not to mention the fact that that's even assuming Azabelfer is telling the truth.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, he talked about the consequences of what it would be with Shang, and, you know.
Oh, no, that's the thing, is that, yeah, bad things would happen to Dong Li. But Shang's already proven in the past that he can they can reseal this demon, so it's like, it's gonna be really bad for those people you only briefly met.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just presented very clearly messing with time is a bad thing. We should not do that. And that seems logical. That seems like a fair assumption for everyone to proceed on. Even the demons are careful about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, can we talk about my favorite part of the season, which is when Seven Blasphemous Deaths reincarnates into her body. And the monk in love with her is so upset by this.
Oh yes, that was so good.
No. Okay.
It's like, I liked you better as a sword. Go back. And she's like, what? No.
That's weird. You're weird for asking that. I'm right here. Yeah, but this is the perfect form for you. That's a sword that stabbed me, dude.
After ducking him for 2/3 of the season, she's like, Shigai, do not let that monk see me, okay? He's weird even for our standards, right? Oh my gosh. And so her downfall comes about not from force of arms, but from this crazy monk and his love for her.
I think it's really force of arms since he only has one.
No, but I love that so much. He stabs her in the chest with her old sword and says,
That's in the back.
return to your true form. She's just like completely off guard. Like
it's the culmination of a very, very well done fight between her and Shang, where Shang has to keep pulling lethal strikes because he recognizes, oh no, if I kill her, she'll just incarnate into this sword that I'm using.
Right? Because of her aforementioned blood magic powers.
Yep. And I also love because this also ties into a very long series of of disguises, like a Mission Impossible mask pull-off sequence, like string of Mission Impossible mask pulls,
good.
Involving Enigmatic Gale, where it's like,
Good.
Enigmatic Gale's been possessed by 7 blasphemous deaths, and all this and all this stuff, and then and he's killed Wan Kunyun, and oh no, and then revisiting characters from season 1, Wan Kunlun's now spouse, Don Fei shows up, sees the enigmatic scale and his sword fighting style, the way he's fighting, and goes, "Wait a minute, I know that fighting style. Like, I know that fighting style. That's the way my husband.
Keep your back straight.
Like, that's the way my husband is mangling my family sword fighting style."
She's whacking him with the stick, just like in before, and it was so good, so good.
And then she removes the thing, and goes, "Wait, so if Enigmatic Gale's Wan Kunlun, then who is Wan Kunlun?" And then we cut to
This poor mantis boy.
The Thunderbolt Fantasy.
We were wondering where he went. No, we weren't actually. Had no idea.
No, because then Enigmatic Gale was impersonating him and went off to, the head of the Order of the Divine Swarm and was trying to...
It's Locust, by the way.
Yeah, Locust. The one is trying to, get Locust and General Wan Yu Po to basically distrust each other. And they're both like, no, I trust them. The fact that you're being like this is a little sus. And Gale's like, oh, I don't don't like it when they trust each other. It makes my job so much harder. Well, I guess I'll go back and make sure he does the thing you and he said he would do.
That was hilarious. Locust guy was like, I see through your attempt to sow dissent here, and it isn't working. And Gail's like, well, crap.
That's the one thing I do. That illusion.
Yeah, and what also made that great is like, because it's also clear from this, like, oh, so this isn't working here, but I know that the general's not going to be a good chew toy, but you.
You right there.
I'm going to save you for next season.
I know. As soon as he saw the cave with the like glow up symbols and everything, he was like, "This is it. This is what I've been looking for."
You're
This
going to
guy's
be my
humor
new
is
Saturday
exactly
night.
what I need.
Shang is going to be so upset I'm on my nonsense again.
But he should be used to it by now.
I think the best way to describe Enigmatic Gale is he's the friend that nobody likes.
Yes, this is true. This is true. That one guy that always shows up and you're like, okay, I guess he's here too. And you know that guy? Yeah. Do you know that guy? I guess.
Yeah, like, he's the guy who will always bail you out of jail. But he's also the guy who's the reason you're in jail and need to be bailed out.
Realize I have a record now. Yeah, I do. That was awesome.
One of my favorite things about the season is how so many characters and stories come together at the end. And it makes perfect sense. Everyone is acting according to character motivation. And then they pull off these crazy like reveals and stuff. And you're like, oh, because it makes perfect sense in retrospect, which is how a reveal should be handled, my friends. And it's just so many moving pieces, and then they assemble the perfect puzzle, and it's beautiful. That's good writing, you know? So good.
And I would like to say this season did introduce my very brief most favorite character, unnamed Order of the Divine Swarm minion.
Oh, that's the moment with the mooks.
Yes.
When they're like,
when the general is rallying both armies that he is supposedly in charge of that are supposed to fight each other,
right,
to work together.
Yep.
To stop the demons.
One of them's like, oh, but I need revenge for my brother. And he's like,
no. It was much more of a, you expect us to listen up, soldier. One of you people killed my son because he didn't get out of the road fast enough. So I swore to kill 100 of you.
And then later on,
he's dying, and
dying on the battlefield.
He's like, or you can't die here. You have 100 of us to kill. Listen, if you die 100 deaths on this battlefield, then I can meet my son. It's
the most beautiful nonsense I've ever seen.
Oh my God. It's so wonderful. And the soldier's like, ah! And it does look like that guy made it through.
Yeah, I think that guy made it. He's gonna have to die 100 deaths somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing. It's like the assembled army later go on. Essentially, they're picked up and to be trained to be the next generation of the
heavenly sword wielders.
Yeah, the Huashi Minyu.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a go ahead.
Yeah. Like Don Fei is basically like, okay, yeah, we're gonna train you all up to be holy sword wielders to fight the demons.
Because we're gonna have to deal with demons.
God knows at least some of you have to be better at this than my husband.
That's right. I have no depth perception, woman. Neither did your master, and he was an excellent archer.
Everyone ranking on the kid. I love it.
I trained to use a spear for like a decade. You can't expect me to pick up a sword that fast.
Yes, I can.
Like that
Shang uses a stick, and he's a better fighter than you.
Like that whole thing is great. I loved the also with I do hope that for season 4, whenever it gets licensed, we also do get a bit more of Mu Tianmeng, who is kind of Lang Liao's semi love interest in the second movie. Like she's cool, and also Tiangong Gui Jiang, the guy who created the Sorcerer's Sword Index. Like
Just a very casual reveal that the guy who made the Heavenly Swords came from another dimension, probably.
Yeah, a dimension or from space alien.
It's just unclear. He has a nice moment with Shang, though.
Oh yeah, like really nice bit there. I do want, speaking of space stuff, I do like how they deal with Seven Blasphemous Deaths, where they basically take her out like the last of the Pillarmen from JoJo's.
So yeah, the monk and his sword waifu.
Like, he
Out
chooses
into
to
space.
take to space, and she's like, no.
And he's like, this is how I wanted to go out. With you.
My beloved.
And then he dies, presumably from explosive decompression, although it looks very peaceful. And she's like, stop.
Well, that's the thing, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, eventually there's a sequel. The Mad Monk returns. And his now thoroughly insane sword.
He's been frozen in space for 1,000 years, holding this sword. Yeah, future.
I've seen weirder. I've seen weirder.
Yep.
It was a very Cars moment.
Yeah. That was.
I have a little. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a little game I would like to play with you guys and with our listeners. This show has a second title, and I'd like to see if you could guess what it is out of the 3 that I present to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, people, here are the options. This show is called Thunderbolt Fantasy, or one of these 3 options. Option number 1, Legend of the Heavenly Swords, or Heavenly Sword Legend, depending on the translation. Option 2, Sword Seekers. Option 3, A Certain Magical Sword Index. All right, what do y'all think it is?
I know the Okay, is this an actual second title?
Yeah, this is legit.
Yeah, Sword Seekers is season 2. I know that one.
I gotta go with Legend of the Sacred Swords.
I would have
According
hedged
to
my
the
bet.
two,
I would hedge my bets and go for 3 because I feel like that's.
Certain Magical Sword Index. It's like, I know the reference, so that can't be it. But it's stupid enough that it could be it.
I mean, it's Gano
Isn't that
Rabuchi, so
amazing?
it could absolutely be it.
I know.
I looked at a couple different wikis because it has more than one, and none of them are very good. But yeah, apparently it's still Sword Seekers for season 3.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Option 2, if you guessed
We
it,
both messed up.
was the correct one. I
Okay.
can't believe I stumped you guys. I'm so happy.
Okay. Like Gano Rabuchi is the kind of guy where he does dark and serious things, but he will slip some real stupid, silly stuff in there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, would he do that? He would absolutely would, because it's not directly plot relevant. And
It's a fun reference.
Yeah, and it's a fun reference. So that was, yeah. I absolutely enjoyed the season. I am really hoping that Crunchyroll licenses season 4 soon.
I want it so much. And then also they're coming out with a movie
which is supposed to be
I
like
think
the grand finale for the
in the
thing.
next couple months. Coming out with the movie, not here in America, because who knows when we'll get it.
Well, honestly, I mean, Crunchyroll is doing those theatrical releases. So we actually could get a theatrical release for like a day.
But don't you think that having not seen season 4, it would be kind of confusing?
Oh, no. They'll definitely license it before we get that.
Yeah, they probably do like drop season 4 in binge mode, in binge form, and then a few month or so after it comes out, do a Fathom event screening of the finale movie.
Honestly, they'd probably announce both at this. You know, they'd probably drop during the hey, buy tickets now.
Yeah.
Catch up.
Yeah. So that. Any final thoughts on the second film and season 3 of Thunderbolt Fantasy?
I want to see more.
Yeah.
Continues to be A++ writing.
I want to see more. I also kind of. I found out that there's a look at the name real fast. The Takarazuka review. There is a Takarazuka review adaptation of season 1. I mean, it's not puppets, but I kind of want to see that.
The stage production?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my god, the costumes look amazing.
Costumes are incredible.
But yeah.
But I mean, I guess Peely put all the work into them first, so they get the credit, right?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of stage production stuff, almost forgot to mention this in the news. Sailor Moon 2.5 stage production on a tour and going across the country. Check near you. I know there's a production coming to Portland. They're coming to Portland to play
Tickets
the
go
Keller.
on sale, I think, next Friday.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, just casually mentioning that. But my final thoughts is I really love this show. I really hope that we get season 4. I also hope this gets a physical media release. This is something that I'd like to have on a shelf.
Yeah.
If you have any
Maybe
interest,
next to a Nindoroid.
Also, if you have any interest in filmmaking, whether that be like cinematography, editing, costume design, this show is actually a really good one to look at. The way they make it dynamic and compelling, even using puppets that can barely move their mouths. Like, I don't know how to describe it because I'm not a film terminology person, but the way that it is shot, cut, and edited makes it compelling. Like, it's really good.
Yeah, they really do a really good job of making the fight choreography look dynamic within the limitations of what you can do with these puppets. And it's really good. So next month it is February, which means it's February, which means we will be sticking with Gen Urobuchi as we cover Fate Zero,
which I think is my favorite one. I'm excited.
And I believe that this is one of the shows that's streaming almost everywhere because it's on. I think it's on Crunchyroll. I believe it's also on Hulu, possibly Disney Plus. Don't know. It was for a time on Netflix. So yeah, this is something that they stuck pretty much everywhere. So it should be fairly easy accessible if you wish to watch along. And if you have any questions or comments, please. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have comments. You can just post in the comments below. Same if you are on my blog, either at count0r.com or at bureau42.com. And you can also email us at animeexplorationspod .gmail.com. That's 2 E's in Anime Explorations. And finally, if you enjoy what we do and you want to support the show, you can back our Patreon at patreon.com/count0or or toss some money in our tip jar at ko-fi.com/count0. Anything you can do to helps cover our hosting costs and just generally helps keep things running. For Patreon backers, you get access to all the stuff I do, my Let's Plays, my video essay reviews, my blog posts, all of that up to 1 week in advance. This one episode will be coming to get close in terms of when it goes live, but Patreon backers should get it before it goes public. But the show will always be publicly available. It will not be behind a paywall. So, thank you all for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you for our show next month.
Happy New Year to those who celebrated on January 1st. Happy upcoming New Year to those who celebrate Chinese New Year.
Lunar New Year.
Lunar New Year. And we'll see you next month.